Okay, today I'm going to talk about something called the Rosh Galuta. Reish Galuta in Aramaic, Rosh Hagolah in Hebrew, and I can't remember this, Res al-Jalut in Arabic. It was a well-known term. The Reish Galuta, as we see, he came up especially in page 58 in masechet Shabbat, and he comes up frequently, is just a leader of the Babylonian Jewry. He might have been a tax collector. He certainly was very wealthy. We're going to learn about his wealth in a minute. And he is supposedly a descendant of Beit David. The house deals with issues, problems, just different political issues that come up. He wasn't a learned person, although he wasn't a learned. And he certainly was on the side of the different yeshivot, but he also was representing all of Jewry only in Bavel. In Eretz Yisrael, you have someone called a Nasi, hence Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. And Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi served like that role, but in Eretz Yisrael. And as we know from Yehuda HaNasi, he was wealthy. I mean, only a wealthy person could actually put together a set of law like the Mishnah. He talked to various emperors and other governors in the area. He knew languages. He understood politics. So too the Reish Galuta in Bavel. It's the same figure. It's the same approach. It's the same activity. Now, this Reish Galuta was interesting because we know actually quite a bit about him in a way. And we know because in various books where they write down who was the Rosh Hagolah from the 2nd century to the 13th century, we know their names. And they come up, of course, in the Bavli, and quite a few times in the Bavli, not just once or twice, because they're an important figure, and they were a historical figure. And of course, the Sasanians and and eventually the Caliphate, the Muslim rulers, everybody knew them. Now, what's interesting for us historians about the Reish Galuta is that, of course, he existed. We know all that from the Talmud, but we also know it from some accounts from historians who were kind of travelers. And they were travelers often doing merchant type of work, and they wrote about what they found in each community. And there's 2 accounts that I want to refer to. The most interesting account is from someone in the 10th century by the name of Rabbi Natan HaKohen HaBavli. And he wrote a fascinating account on how this Reish Galuta was brought in and was appointed. And it was lots of pomp and circumstance, and very similar, I guess, to a royal, how you would think of a royal, a British royal I'm thinking of. I am Canadian, it's not hard for me to imagine it. A British royal in today's day. And I want to read you a little bit of what Rabbi Natan HaKohen HaBavli wrote about this person. So they would decide on a Reish Galuta. And actually there were some issues there. But right now we're going to just say they decided on somebody. And they would bring him out. And what they would do is the following thing. The community would gather in the main synagogue on Thursday. The Reish Galuta would be installed by the laying of hands. The shofar was sounded to let all people know from the youngest to the eldest. And when everyone heard it, each of them would send him a gift, each according to his means. All the leaders of the congregation and the wealthy would send him fine clothes, jewelry, and gold and silver vessels, each as he saw fit. The Reish Galuta, for his part, would take great pains in preparing a feast for Thursday and Friday, which included all kinds of food and drink, and all sorts of confections, such as various sweets. And actually it's interesting because we see in the various dapim associated with the Reish Galuta, the food element and the wealth element. And I think it's borne out perfectly by this eyewitness account, Rabbi Natan Kohen HaBavli. And they went on and how they brought him into shul and how all the various Roshei Shivot from Nehardea and Surah would be involved with this. And it was very special, and it was full of pomp and circumstance. Now, there's another account by somebody named Benjamin of Tudela. And if you haven't heard of Benjamin of Tudela, well, Now you have, because he's very important for us historians in the Middle Ages. He was a merchant, and he went all the way from Spain, all the way out to Iran, right, Persia, and he went all through, of course, Eretz Israel, North Africa, Cyprus, everywhere where there were Jews, basically, in the ancient world. And he was a merchant, and he was doing business, but along the way, he was a historian. I mean, a self-fashioned one. And he wrote about also the Reish Galuta a little bit later, and he wrote similar elements. He expanded a bit, but basically the theme is the same. There's this Reish Galuta. He's a hypersensitive character, a hyper royal kind of character that was actually sensitive to the vicissitudes of politics of the day, and it was very important to have him. Maybe today the only similarity is the kind of noble leader maybe in England today, sort of the chief rabbi, something like that. Anyways, that's the history of the Reish Galuta.